video. I'm Miss Linnea Lark, and I'm back with another live demo for my Pottery 1 kids. Today we'll be learning how to trim a simple foot.
So when it's going, at this point it's stuck to the wheel head, so that should help me. I'm going to hold this really tight, and I'm just going to keep it flat, and I'm going to move quickly, but it really does kind of hurt at this point. That hurt. Okay, so I have to recut it off, and that looks pretty smooth and clean, but it might not be, like right there, it looks like it's a little bit not level. Does that make sense? So I'm going to have to deal with that in a second. So I'm going to get my tools. Everybody look this way. Make sure you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to get a metal rib of death. I'm going to get a needle tool. I'm going to get, these are my favorite tools in the world. I special order these from China. They take like 2 months to get here. But it's seriously the best tools in the world. You don't need anything else. There are other ones down here that I can show you. But I love the Chinese ones so much. Like you guys, they know a few things about pottery. I'm just saying. They've been making it a long time over there. I love the bamboo ones, and I'll show you why. So let's imagine that this is your piece, and you have put it right there. Now, when you do this, notice how off-center that is. Okay? So what you can do is I would try to just eyeball it and make it as close as you possibly can. Well, let's say that's as close as I can get it. Okay? This is going to be your needle tool, but I'm going to show you with the marker. You're going to get as close as you can without touching. Am I touching? Perfect. Once I get as close as I can without touching, I'm going to go a little bit closer. And I kind of want to rub it on the side. If I stab it, it's going to want to tip over. Does that make sense? So I kind of want to drag it on the side. Oh, so see how it kept moving right there? So let's try it again. So like right there. Okay? Then what I do is I get my fingers and I find that line and I put one finger on either side, and then I just move from the middle of those two sides away just a wee little bit. Does that make sense? So now I'm just going to try to do the same thing. So I didn't go far enough, but look, I'm in the same region, so that means that I'm in the right direction. Okay? So I'm going to get right there, find the middle point, and push. I'm going to do a little bit more this time because it's so off. But you guys, I would say that what drives kids crazy is it's really just a little bunch. Just a wee little bunch. Okay? So I'm getting closer and closer and closer. Okay? So again, we're getting there. Find the middle point and push away. And it's not quite laying flat, so it's wanting to move. But see how it's looking more and more on center at this point? Get closer. Now notice the closer I get to center, what happens to my line? It gets longer and longer. When you're truly dead center, you're going to have a circle around the whole thing. Now we're looking pretty close. Check that out. So sometimes what I'll do is if I can't see both sides, which I can, it's like right there, I'm going to push away. But after this one, I'm going to go back up to the top and do the top. This is looking pretty good, y'all. So at this point, it's mostly touching. It's less of what isn't touching. So I'm going to go to the space that isn't touching and find the middle. I'm going to pull it this time. So does that make sense? You want to pull it if you're going the opposite direction. And did you see how just a wee little bit? This is the frustrating part for beginners. Okay? So I'm going to try to just go slightly below. And y'all, I got a full on dead on line. So now I'm fully centered. There's no sense cutting anything out if you're not fully centered. You're just going to have to survive and last through this tedious long process. Okay? Okay, did everybody kind of understand the idea behind it? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my eye line. I'm going to give it a little kick. That's pretty off. Try to get a little bit more on center before I get going. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my needle tool. Y'all, honestly, I just use my pinky finger's nail. But if you'd like to use your needle tool, you can. Okay, so I'm closer than I was with the last one. You guys see that? I find both sides. I put one finger on either side. I find the middle. I'm just gonna scooch it away. I did a big one that time. Hopefully I didn't overcorrect. I'm gonna do it just slightly below it. Y'all, and I'm riding like a dream. I'm totally centered, okay? Now one thing that I like to do when I get there is I like to just tap it down just in case my rim isn't totally flat. It kind of levels it for me. Now what I like to do with the extra clay, thank you Laz, is for things like that we're making, I don't go all the way around. The only time I go all the way around is if I'm doing like a really wide, like a big pot that looks like it'll fall over. Does that make sense? So what I like to do is I like to start with a little log of clay and I like to pinch one side. The reason I like to pinch is because I'm going to hold it here and I'm going to put that little pinched area right into the corner of the clay, and that's going to give me the tightest hold. If I put something round on something that is cornered, I'm going to end up with air at the corner. Does that make sense? So I like to kind of help it out, and then I really make sure that I seal it up against the wall here, and I seal it down there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the opposite side, so you guys can see it now on this side. Kind of curve it, hold it nice and still. Now what a lot of kids are not paying attention to what they're doing, and then they knock it off center in this point. They just did all the hard work of centering their pot, and then they either aren't, you know, paying attention and they knock it off, or what they do is they move it when they're doing this. That's not a good vibe either. I'm gonna do, and I always do 4, and because mine is really thin, it does actually go all the way around. But I don't necessarily care about that. I just want 4 pieces equally spread out. Okay, so I'm just gonna double check it because again, like I said, there's no point doing any of this if it's not centered, and I'm still looking good. Okay, so the reason that I love these tools, and they're the best in the West. Did everybody touch my clay? Everybody come touch this clay. This is where we want it. It's dry enough that my finger doesn't leave a fingerprint on it. It's not like a wet fingerprint, but it's still wet enough that I'm gonna be able to carve it down. If you try to trim when it's too dry, it'll start coming off in chips. If it comes off in chips and it doesn't ruin anything, like, thank your lucky stars, you're at the last opportunity to trim. But if it starts like a buckshot chipping, then it's just, I mean, good luck. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I like to get my bottom as flat as possible, remember? See how my finger is pushing it? Yeah, definitely don't sit right there. See how my finger is going up and down on top of there? That tells me that my bottom is not level. That means my pot's going to be crooked. So what I like to do, and the reason I love these, is because on one side it's flat and straight, and on the other side it's bumpy and teethy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the teeth side down. The teeth just eat right through it. It's amazing. So I'll just hold it, and I like to hold both of my hands together, and I usually like to have something on the top, but I like to put my finger on the back so I can keep it level because it's going to want to grip and rip. How many of you guys have tried the wet trim where your pinky's keeping the wet trim in place and that like wants to grip and rip? This is the same thing. Okay, so I've got my fingers on each other. I'm all stable. I've got a hand on top. I want to hold it level. If you ride the waves, you're going to make the waves more exaggerated. Does that make sense? So you want to be a rock on top, and you just want to skim off the top of those waves. And the best way to do that is with these stinking little teeth. Thank you, China. I can still feel a little bit there. And I don't want to take much off of leveling because remember we want to keep that 5 inches. Everybody feeling it? Okay. So now that I've got that flat, I'm going to go back to the flat side. I flip it over and I'm just going to get rid of all those little teeth marks. If you try to trim when your pot is too dry, you're going to end up not being able to get rid of those teeth marks. Does that make sense? That's annoying. Now our goal for this is to get the outside straight up and down. So I'm going to go ahead and use the teeth side on the outside. I'm going to hold it. Get it nice and straight up and down. That looks good right there. Does it look like it's a little bit thicker right there? I can't tell. I'm gonna flip it over, and because this is so nice, I'll go ahead and show you one of the big ones. Once you get it mostly level, you can really start to smooth out with one of the bigger tools. And this just kind of flattens everything. Now you wanna notice that I can't trim where that clay is on the bottom, so you kind of wanna smooth it out so that you can't tell that you stopped trimming there. Does everybody see I have a perfectly shaped cylinder now? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my needle tool and I'm going to draw a line how thick I want my foot. Now I would say your pinky finger is the first good goal. It's a little bit thicker than you need, but you want to make it thicker than you need because you're going to mess it up the first time. Okay? So I'm going to make sure like about a pinky finger width in. I'm going to draw a little line on the inside. Everybody see that? And what I like to do is I like to take one of these bamboo tools, and I don't really use the teeth side for this. I'm going to use the corner. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to press inward and downward with just that corner. Remember in the video he was talking about how you want to just use a thin area and then slowly move in toward the middle? Have you noticed that sometimes it wants to grip my tool as I'm watching, you're watching me? Now here's the deal. How do you know how far down you got to go? Well, first of all, you got to go down deep enough that you can put a nice layer of glaze down there, 3 layers of glazes, and it can become glass and still not touch. So you really do want a pretty good drop, okay? But then it also depends on how thick your floor is. Now here's the trick. Everybody listen up. When you do this, that is solid. That is not very thin. I've got a lot of clay down there. I'm good. I'm not afraid. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and go down. And every time I do a pass and I go a little bit lower, I'm going to re-pop that top and listen. And the other thing, the vibration makes a sound, but also the feeling of the vibration you'll become sensitive to at some point. Still super thick. And I don't want it super thick because I'm also going to grade you poorly if you don't take enough off. Okay? If you let fear guide you, it's really not going to work. Sometimes on the inside I like these little smaller ones. I like this one. It's nice. It's a little bit rounder. I wish it was a tighter corner, but I do like this one. So I'm going to go ahead and take it in. Now, see how my fingers are on the outsides? Because when I'm doing this, it wants to rip and teeter the pot. Does that make sense? So my hands on the outside are really allowing me to actually go deeper without tipping my pot. I'm still using that corner. I'm going to go ahead and listen. Still pretty thick, y'all, so I'm going to keep on going on. And I'm going to go ahead and get a little risky here, and I'm going to cut down just a little bit of this foot because it's still on the thick side. Bring that down, make my pot look a little bit graceful. And when you start cutting away, if your clay isn't dry enough, your trimming tool is going to slice right through it. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go ahead and use the teeth here. I've still got so much extra clay that I'm not concerned whatsoever of going through. Okay, do you guys hear that? That does sound a little bit more shallow now. Do you hear the difference? So the other thing is when you tap it, sometimes if you're like really close, you'll actually see it cave a little bit. Get out of there, just leave it. If it starts caving on you, just try to make it look pretty and just be done. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so now it looks a hot mess. You guys, during COVID, trimming was awful because everybody had their masks on. But you want to like blow it out. You can also grab a paintbrush, and I don't think I have any over there right now. Maybe I should put some. I'm going to go ahead and smooth it out, and what I want is I want a 90-degree angle. I want a flat floor. I don't want to be able to see evidence of any of that bamboo tool with the teeth. I also, you guys, the other thing is I want to get a straight up and down wall. So notice how I'm pushing outward toward the foot, making that really nice. What was that?
I don't know, they made a weird shuffle.
Okay, and I think I've got it, y'all. Okay, so then the very last thing that I'm going to do, and when I take this out, if everybody can see it, there's little gunks in there. I'm just going to leave it. I can brush that out with a paintbrush. Oh, bless you. So sweet. You can also use your metal rib, like it, if you really want to make it nice. Sometimes I'll spray it with a water bottle. And you can actually burnish the clay this way, so be careful. If you overdo it, it's going to make your clay look like metal, and it actually affects your glazing and how your glazing looks. So you don't want to like overdo it unless you want that burnished vibe. I just squished a raw piece of clay on there. Do you guys see it? Yeah. Silly me. So I'm just going to scrape it off and then smooth it down again. I'm not going to try to do the inside there. I don't trust myself. But maybe I'll use one of the wide ones. Final little raw. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, my pot's all good. I'm going to very carefully, I like to just pull off one little piece at a time, and I pull it away from the pot. Okay, sometimes when you do this, especially if you're trying to trim when the pot is too wet, you're going to warp your pot. So I just gently remove these, and then you can see my pot's still pretty round, so that's a good thing. But then I'm just going to tap it down, make sure it's all nice and good. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get one of these dotting tools. That dot is gone. Someone nuzzled that dot off. But the wide one is good too. The wider it is, the more the clay will go into it, and then you'll really still be able to see your name. So I'm going to go ahead and write my name on here. Now, the first day you write your name on here, it's going to have all this gunk. You're just going to let it be, and as it dries, you'll just knock it off with a paintbrush. And then you'll retrace your letters one more time. Not before it's bone dry, a little bit before it's bone dry, like maybe the next class. So everybody see all that gunk in there? So just leave it for today if it's too wet. You can try to knock some of it off with a paintbrush. But I would just let it sit up another day because it's still on the wet side. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So then the very last thing that I want to do is I want to take a sponge, a damp sponge. This is already damp. And I'm just going to, because it kind of ruined my rim a little bit, I'm just going to soften my rim. And there you go. Okay? Yeah.
Just to clarify, this is too dry.
It's getting there, but I think you could do it. You have to be very careful. What you can do, if your pot is too dry, you could spray it, like spray the dickens out of it,
yeah.
Put it in a tight bag, and then the next class you come in, it might be ready. Yes.
What if ours is too wet?
If yours is too wet, you can put it out in the sun for like 10 minutes and then bring it in and try it. So everybody notice here that this is not sticking to my hand. It's not leaving any marks on my hand. My hand isn't making any fingerprints on it. That's when it's good to go. And sometimes it's good to go on the outside, and then as soon as you start trimming, it's really wet on the core, so even then you need to wait. So I would just stop. I know you might have done all the hard work of getting it centered, but what you could honestly do is if you have it down and you start trimming, you could pop this whole thing off, put it outside in the sun, still attached, and you might be able to maintain the center.
You're trimming on the outside with the big fuss, with the big tools. You go up and then down. You ever go
Either way,
down?
sometimes I start down, sometimes I go up. I usually like to start at the top and then go down because I like to even out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to end up so low that I hit the outside clay.
And then on the bottom or the top, you just go from the outside in.
I do go from the outside to the middle, and then you can go back and forth and back and forth. I typically go out in, out in, out in, just because I like being able to keep the pressure. You guys are gonna make all the mistakes, and so then you'll learn. You really gotta tip a pot over, you know what I mean? You really gotta cut right through the bottom. You just have to, because as I did all that multiple times, and sometimes I still do it, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not paying attention or not tapping. Any other questions? These are good questions. How many of you guys feel like you're game, like you understand it and you know what's up? Now, what I will say is that trimming was hard for me because it's tedious. Do you see how you really have to get it centered? And I wasn't sure how to really get it centered. I'm here to help you with that, okay? But do not start cutting anything unless you truly have it centered, or else it's for nothing. It's for
Now, one thing I didn't mention is that oftentimes beginner pots aren't centered from top to bottom. They're a little bit wonky. So in that case, you want to prioritize centering the bottom of the pot because we're going to be trimming a foot into the bottom of the pot. When we flip our pots upside down to trim them, the foot is actually at the top. So notice that when I'm marking my rings, I start at the top, which is actually the foot of the pot. Center that area. That's way more important. All right, you guys, that's the end of this demo. Thanks for watching. I wish you guys luck trimming your cylinders. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you can get notified every time I put out a video. Happy day.